Buying a car in Carvana was so easy. I was able to finance it through them.
Whoa, wait, you mean finance?
Yeah, finance. Got pre-qualified for a Carvana auto loan, entered my terms, and shot from thousands of great car options all within my budget.
That's cool, but financing through Carvana was so easy.
Financed. Done. And I get to pick up my car from their Carvana vending machine tomorrow.
Financed.
Right, that's what I said.
You can spend time trying to pronounce financing, or you can actually finance and buy your car today on
Carvana.
Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
Weird Way Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Film Foundations, the collaborative show between Weirding Way Media and Someone's Favorite Productions. I am one of your co-hosts, Ryan Verrill from the Disc Connected.
And I'm one of the other hosts, or the other host. There is no what. I guess there is someone else here, but technically only for this episode. Not saying we're not going to invite you back or anything, but
well, let's not come to conclusions. Yeah.
Right.
We'll see how this goes.
And I am Chris Dashu of the Culture Cast and Weirding Way Media, where this show is hosted currently.
My agent said I was only contractually obligated for one episode.
As usual on this show, we ask and answer 4 questions about a given topic that is surrounding either an actor, director, or franchise, or like today's discussion on a microgenre. And our job is to entice you to broaden your horizons on film, to encourage you to travel down film tangents and side roads that you may have never traveled down otherwise, and perhaps you could spend up to 499 days of a certain summer there. Today, our guest is one of my very close friends, a comedian and writer of the infamous film Clickbait, on sale in a vintage stock in Overland Park, Kansas, currently, right now.
No, someone bought it.
That's what I've heard. Yes, my dear friend, Mr. Jeremy Long. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here.
Oof, my ass is sore from all that kissing. Thank you for those kind words, Ryan.
Well, if your ass is sore from that, just wait until the end of this episode. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
our topic
your subgenre is going to be done getting reamed, is what we're saying.
Clickbait is infamous for having more torrent downloads than actual purchases. That's what it's infamous for.
Well, and part of that is because Netflix had to go out and make a series with the exact same title.
Oh, yeah. Clickbait is infamous for getting confused for the Netflix series starring Zoe Kazan, who will be a prime topic of today's discussion.
As we've alluded to it, our category tonight is the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. We're going to get to some discussion on that. But first of all, Jeremy, this has been a long time coming. Genuinely, thank you for doing this. Chris and I are stoked to have you here. You've watched more movies than most people I know in person. You've gotten more showings and autographs in the last couple of years than any human should ever be able to. And I'm just glad to share the space with you, as I always am. And I'm stoked to talk movies with you.
Thank you. I'm always stoked to talk movies with anybody, much less somebody that I love so dearly. And Ryan.
I was about to say, you get it. You already get it. You get it. I got the Riz, baby.
Nope. I just got to dip my toes in any kind of project that Ryan is part of, apparently. So it was only a matter of time before I ended up on this show, too. But happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad that on your resume, I saw the words 2-time Shelf Shock Award presenter.
And frequent disconnected guest. And then way at the bottom, after, part-time bird watcher, is clickbait writer that nobody cares about.
Which was already like 8 lines below he was cut out of an episode of Mom on CBS.
That's true. and can be seen in the background with his shoes off of Jack Reacher. Go on.
I'm just so intrigued about the shoes. Anyways, Manic Pixie Dream Girls. Let's dive into this. What is what's the love for this topic for you? And for those that have maybe heard this idea before but don't know what it actually is, do you have a way to define this?
Yeah, so I took a copious amount of notes from both my own personal knowledge of the genre and the term that's been part of the zeitgeist now since originally coined, as well as a little extra research I did where I found out actually quite a bit about the topic that I wasn't familiar with already, which I was shocked by. Why does it interest me? I don't know. I guess I'm the target audience for that genre because I'm a sad, pathetic, sad sack, hopeless romantic kind of guy who is looking for a Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Therefore, somehow, whether subconsciously or consciously, those films with this microgenre, as we're calling it, have become like my top films of all time, including things like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, 500 Days of Summer, etc. I found out in my research, this is quite interesting actually, and I'll tell you why, that the term was coined by then AV Club writer Nathan Rabin, which the reason that is so interesting to me, that pertains nothing to this topic whatsoever, but I'll share a side story, is that Nathan Rabin is a name that I recognized immediately. Obviously, there's tons of people that write for AV, so he could have been anybody, but he's since then, because this was in 2007 that he first coined the term in an article, he has since then become pretty well known in the Weird Al fandom circles because he's released several books on Weird Al, including the Weird Al coloring book and Weird the Book, which is like a kind of biography type of thing. I think he's now put out like 3 or 4 books about Weird Al of various topics and sizes. And I own them all because I own anything Weird Al related. But that's a topic for another show. So I'm very familiar with Nathan Rabin and was not aware until doing research for this show that he's the one who coined this term. So he coined it back in 2007 when he was writing a piece for AV Club called My Year of Flops, about flop movies that flopped.
Great book,
and
by the way.
It's a book?
Yeah, it's a book. I mean, I'm assuming it's just a compilation of all of the reviews that he did. But I mean, I've read the book. I'm assuming that that's from the website it came that. But yeah, he wrote a book all about it.
Oh, interesting. That's good to know. I might check that out as well because I've come to like his writing. So he coined the term in reference to the film that actually came out in 2005, Elizabethtown, starring Orlando Bloom and Kirsten Dunst. So in a way, Kirsten Dunst is kind of the OG or original Manic Pixie Dream Girl. It depends on how you define the original, because obviously the concept of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl dates back long before Elizabethtown in 2005. But that is the film and the character that coined the term that then catapulted it into pop culture and the lingo that we use to this day. But yeah, so he describes it, which I wouldn't really be able to describe it any better than how he wrote it in the AV Club article. The Manic Pixie Dream Girl exists solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach brooding, soulful young men to embrace life and its intimate mysteries and adventures. So essentially,
they defined it with your life. Got it.
Yes, correct. Essentially me.
I love how by that definition, I feel like, and I don't know if anyone's ever made this connection, and I'll be the first person to make it. Manic Pixie Dream Girl, in a lot of ways, is the 21st century version of the magical Negro trope. See? He's only there. He's they're one-dimensional because it's not necessarily a man or a woman. They're there to prop up the lead, offer emotional support, and lead them down a transformative journey of self-discovery. If you describe that to someone and didn't say Manic Pixie Dream Girl, they might go, is that the magical Negro trope as well? So maybe less incendiary than the magical Negro trope. But I mean, Manic Pixie Dream Girl is also kind of derogatory in a way, right? A little bit?
It can be. I don't know if the term itself, that's something that I am very interested in that we can get into later, that has become, I don't know if the term itself necessarily is derogatory, but how it's been used over the course of the last 2 decades since it's originated has kind of made it derogatory.
Yep.
It's kind of like Mary Sue in a way. But I think Mary Sue is like directly and aggressively antagonistic in its phrasing. Manic Pixie Dream Girl, I would think for me, if Manic Pixie Dream Girl is problematic at all, it's dismissive more than anything else. It can just come off as like, oh, you're just a Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Well, that's exactly the reason it has become such kind of a controversial term, especially as of late with how, the Me Too movement and so many things going on, is because over the years it's become exactly that, Chris, dismissive. It's been very casually a term that's very casually thrown on female leads or just female actresses in general, to kind of almost essentially put them in a box,
right?
And the big question about that is, which again we can get into later unless you want to talk about it now, but the big question is what exactly is the difference between a Manic Pixie Dream Girl versus just a quirky female lead?
Label. The label. That's it.
I mean, Nathan Rabin himself, I'm burning through my notes faster than I expected. He really kind of denounced the term, and obviously it's become I don't know. I wouldn't call it a hot button issue necessarily. There's so many things that are certainly taken way more seriously than the term Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but it has been something that's been in discussion in terms of being considered dismissive or sexist, or misogynistic over the last couple of years. And, John Green, the novelist, who that term was applied to really both of his films, Fault in Our Stars and whatever the heck the other one is.
Paper Towns.
Yes, specifically Paper Towns. Him and Zoe Kazan, who we talked about earlier with her film Ruby Sparks, that term got applied very easily to those characters when they were not only not going for that, but actually trying to actively criticize that stereotype. So they've spoken out about it in interviews many times. And then shortly after that, Nathan Rabin himself in 2014, in an essay for Salon, actually denounced the term that he once coined himself merely less than a decade prior, saying that, he regrets ever saying it and that it wasn't his intention for it to become what it has become. And it was originally coined to fight sexism and has since been used to encourage sexism. But again,
Pepe the Frog all over again.
What it boils down to in my book is I don't think the term itself is bad. And that I don't think that's even being argued, although it might be by some people. It's how casually people have thrown it around. And yet, again, dismissive is a good term for it because, the term itself has no derogatory meaning to it, really. It's just to describe a certain type of character. It's when you use it to box in certain, not just female characters in film, but even females in general. People were calling Zooey Deschanel herself a Manic Pixie Dream Girl for many years, just based on her filmography and how she acted in interviews and things like that. And that's where it starts to get, very iffy and misogynistic.
Yes.
There's a lot to unbox there, Ryan. Where do you...
Very, very trope filled. Like, that's a good way to put it too. I mean, the way that the movies are made, and for some of them, like literally to like check off ideas under tropes, but then also somebody looks at somebody and they see a couple characteristics and they immediately put them in a box, and that's never cool, of course.
Well, that's the thing, you see an outspoken female character or a quirky female character or a female character with colored hair, and then immediately it's Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
And I think also the term, like if you break the term down into like the 3 separate phrases, like manic, okay, manic is not necessarily a positive term. I actually would go as far as to say the only time I've heard adults use the term manic is to describe a manic episode, which is bad. Yeah, which is not good. And then pixie, okay, that has neither negative or positive. But then dream girl, again, I think also if you go to the idea of calling a woman a manic pixie dream girl, you're also, like we've also mentioned, the dehumanization of it, but also the de-ageifying of it to make them again, girl, which implies less autonomy than a woman has, sure. Which again, not my place to argue that, because I am not part of that conversation in the way that someone should be able to talk about it, aka a woman, not three fucking white guys. Even though I'm gay, it doesn't matter. But to your point, like, I think it's more, I don't think anyone's sitting and going manic is a bad term and we don't like it. It's just, it's the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a manic episode is not good. I think obviously in this definition, it's used to be a, very outgoing.
Which is not what, I mean, that's not what manic is. Like,
yeah, I think I do think that's what it's kind of leaning more towards in this particular definition, but I agree with you.
Right, it's the quirky thing.
Dream Girl, aside from the girl aspect that's referenced, is also a bit neutral. And by that, I mean, to call someone your dream girl is not necessarily a negative thing. And in fact, it could possibly be flattering, but it's also, from a psychological standpoint, not a healthy perspective to have.
Right. Obsession.
Kind of the whole, part of why this term spiraled out of control is this ideology that a person, namely a woman, can just solve all your problems and then you're just completely fine, which is so very far from the truth. But that's kind of what has the structure that has been formulated in these films that we would label Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
It's like deification, almost placing on the pedestal.
Yeah, it is, really. Because it's a sad sack, loner, loser type of male protagonist who has nothing really going for them. And then this Manic Pixie Dream Girl comes along and over the course of the film suddenly opens them up and all their problems are solved. And, they just come, embrace it. And there they come out of this experience ready to embrace all of life's challenges and idiosyncrasies as if nothing was ever wrong. And that's just not the way life works. And, but it's a movie so movies don't have to be the way life works. But I think that's part of the reason where some people have drawn the line between this fictionalized version of a woman created by a writer versus real life, where people are often now using the term Manic Pixie Dream Girl in real life to describe real people.
Are you saying that some of the characters that are described as Manic Pixie Dream Girls wouldn't pass the Bechdel test? Is that what you're saying? I mean, it's so weird to be talking about this in a way because, again, like, it is in a lot of ways, and I'm not trying to be dismissive here. I'm trying to be dismissive of the phrase, but, like, it is such a nothing burger of a phrase. Like, to get upset about it is to get upset about something that there are a lot worse transgressive things being done in Hollywood towards women that have nothing to do with. And again, look, the way I look at Manic Pixie Dream Girl movies is it's a movie about a guy chasing after a woman, and that's the focus of the movie.
I mean,
that's most romantic comedies in a lot of ways of like a certain time period. That was the exact thing. And so it's like, well, is every woman in those movies a Manic Pixie Dream Girl? No, not necessarily, but some of them might have been like...
Yeah, I mean, that's the topic of conversation. You're exactly right, because like I said earlier, what's the difference between, a Manic Pixie Dream Girl versus just a quirky female character in a film?
Is Sandra Bullock in Missed Congeniality a Manic Pixie Dream Girl? I don't know.
I mean, in doing this research, they labeled things like Barbra Streisand and What's Up Doc as a Manic Pixie Dream Girl. And it's like, I don't know, because in one hand, yes, she's kind of doing the trope of that term in saving Ryan O'Neal's character from being all miserable and depressed. But at the same time, that's a full-fledged comedy. I mean, a lot of the films we're talking about, 500 Days of Summer, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Garden State, etc., Elizabethtown, where it was originally coined, are romantic dramas more so than rom-com.
Right.
What's Up, Doc is a full-fledged comedy. It's the job of those characters and the writers to be quirky and over-the-top and ridiculous.
Right.
Does that qualify them as a Manic Pixie Dream Girl? It's a very fine line. And, of course, the term itself, as we already discussed, is really arbitrary. I mean, the reason it's gotten, whether negative or positive press is because it happened to be coined by a writer who was pretty substantial, by a magazine that was fairly substantial, and it picked up steam and became part of the vernacular and pop culture. But the term itself is arbitrary. I mean, some guy came up with it to describe one character in one movie, and suddenly it latched on and people are using, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I do agree with you, Chris, that it's not really necessarily something to be upset over or to get that agitated over, really, in my book. And the backlash that's caused is kind of a little ridiculous. And there are way more important things, especially in the Hollywood system, to be upset and argue about than this one term. Obviously, in my choosing of it, I never even expected to be having this conversation necessarily. I wasn't even super duper familiar with the backlash until I dug into some research more. When Ryan asked me what topic out of those 4 possibilities I wanted to choose, my mind went to this just because I was familiar with the term and I knew that it tied in to a lot of my favorite films and would allow me to discuss a lot of films that I really enjoy personally. And then, of course, upon doing some research, I realized, this is has a lot of backstory to it, this term and this whole trope.
Right.
Well, let's dive into those films themselves surrounding these tropes a little bit more, finally. And we'll start with our first question. So, Jeremy, what do you consider the foundational title under the subgenre Manic Pixie Dream Girls? So this is like the one that everybody should watch first if you've never seen any of them.
The easy answer would be, here's why this is a tough question. What I believe, so my favorite film of all time is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm wearing the shirt. It's just a very important film to me for a lot of reasons that we don't have to get into. But the point is, it's one of the most well-known Manic Pixie Dream Girl films. I mean, look up any list, any video about the topic, and then boom, there it is. Kate Winslet, Clementine, colored hair, quirky, outgoing, saves Joel, But upon not even doing the research for this, that kind of cemented my own beliefs I already had, but also just because I'm such a passionate person about that film and a writer myself, I said, that's not really the case in this movie. In fact, if anything, Charlie Kaufman, the writer of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, is trying to almost denounce that term and really critique it with the character of Clementine. I mean, she literally has a quote in the movie that says, "Too many guys think I'm a concept or that I'm going to complete them or make them feel more alive. I'm just a fucked up girl looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours." He literally puts that in there saying, no, that's not who this character is. Don't. And this is before the term was even coined. That term came about in 2007 when Nathan wrote that review. Eternal Sunshine came out in 2004. So before this term even existed and that term was applied to this film so heavily and almost aggressively, Charlie Kaufman was already trying to denounce that viewpoint of the female character in this type of film. So I almost can't say that that's the seminal film to watch in this microgenre, to answer your question, despite it being my favorite film of all time and what many would consider possibly one of the number one, certainly in the top 3 of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl subgenre, if you look it up on Google or really any kind of outlet. So my answer, I think, despite it being the easy way out, would just be Elizabethtown, because I think that does quantify this term more aptly than something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and it's what coined the term. So why not go to the source?
So that's what coined it. For anybody that hasn't seen it, why don't you tell us about Elizabethtown?
I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's about Orlando Bloom, who is this character that we've already discussed, a very sad sack, kind of depressed. His dad just died and he's flying to Elizabethtown to bury his ashes, his hometown, and he meets Kirsten Dunst's character on a plane, and she's exactly what we described as a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, this kind of almost non-existent, overly friendly, quirky, passionate, over-the-top type of girl, who just so happens to randomly strike up a conversation with him on the plane. That's another common trope of this microgenre, is that the male protagonist never initiates the conversation. It's always the Manic Pixie Dream Girl who approaches this brooding male protagonist and starts randomly a conversation with them that leads down this whole road of his life being changed forever. And that's essentially the plot of the movie. And then from there, it just proceeds as any kind of romantic film would, rom-com.
Have you seen Elizabethtown, Chris?
I haven't, but
But you've seen it. Have you seen that?
I've seen it. I've seen it, but I haven't seen it because I've seen Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless. Well, no, I haven't seen that. I've seen 500 Days of Summer. That's what I've seen, which is like, that's a pretty good example. Again,
Well, 500 Days is another prime example. I would say if I'm kind of taking Eternal Sunshine out of the bucket of films based on the reasons I explained earlier, I would say arguably the top three would be Elizabethtown, 500 Days of Summer, and Garden State. Honestly, though, even Garden State is another really good example. But even 500 Days of Summer is arguably not, because really it's another film that's very much, it has all the same tropes that you would expect from a romantic comedy, a Manic Pixie Dream Girl type of role genre. But the whole plot, really, the subtext of that film that we learn towards the end of the film is that he's an idiot. He's an idiot, but he's overlooking the character of Summer, Zooey Deschanel. Yeah. She's not uplifting and fulfilling all of his hopes and dreams and making him this magically better person by the end of the film. He's overlooking her inner dialogue and her whole purpose in life and just completely bulldozing over it because that's his character, is this person who doesn't really know what he wants and is taking her for granted. And it's funny. I don't know. It's as I was going down this rabbit hole and doing research for this microgenre, I've learned that almost every film that is at the top of the list of Manic Pixie Dream Girl films can almost be broken down to almost going against that trope in a way. Same thing with Ruby Sparks. Ruby Sparks, one of my all-time favorite films, written by Zoe Kazan, starring her and Paul Dano. She's also literally almost almost to a crazy degree going critiquing the trope within the film, to the point where there's a quote in that movie where Chris Mencina's character says to Paul Dano, "Quirky, messy women whose problems only make them endearing are not real," which is literally the trope of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
They are not. That is the thing. That's the reality of these movies.
They are not.
Right? At all.
They are not.
They are exhausting as well.
For some people, for me, that's...
but have you actually been around one of these people? That's my question.
No, because they don't exist.
I would contend that they do exist, but they exist in the way that you've mentioned, which is they're real, but they're really a lot. And again, it's not cute when someone doesn't know how to manage their money and gets kicked out of their apartment and all kinds of shit. That's not cute. It's not fun. But but if it's a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, then it is fun. And it's the person that I have my answer, but my answer.
Well, no, you're right. That's kind of the trope of the whole subgenre or microgenre, whatever you want to call it, is that, listen, we're talking about movies here. That's the other thing that I keep emphasizing, is that these are fabricated worlds.
Right.
You're right. It's not cute. It may not be necessarily endearing to the majority of people in real life, but it
majority of people, brother, it's a 99%, and there's a 1% of people that the 1% are those people
in that 1% corner. In case any Manic Pixie Dream Girls are watching this.
Oh boy, I'm just throwing my hat into the ring. You know where to find.
So one thing I was going to say for this is we talked about the idea of a manic, what that meant in terms of these movies earlier, and I think this is the thing that we need to hit a little harder on. This is manic. Nobody's saying Manic Pixie Dream Girl meaning they have manic episodes. It's literally they're flighty. And Chris, you used the term quirky. I think we lean on that in the cute way, but it's more insufferable.
Well, in real life, they would be insufferable.
Right.
And they're not.
And in some of these movies, it is still that way. The Zooey Deschanel in Yes Man is insufferable in a way where you can't live your life saying yes to everything, literally. And so in her role where she's acting,
not the one saying yes to everything.
No, but she's the one that encourages that. And
she's an enabler.
Exactly. And she's like, come on, you can do it, whatever. But it's that sort of attitude that drives that Manic Pixie Dream Girl trope-filled journey through what ends up not being super great. But my answer for this first one, and I'm going to tack it on before Chris answers because you already mentioned it. I want to go through 500 Days of Summer because it is my answer. Right. And I understand that it's against the idea of this. And that's kind of why I want to do this, because this and Eternal Sunshine are both, I don't want to say they don't fit the tropes, because they do hit a lot of the same boxes, but they're subversive to the tropes. And to me, that makes both of those more interesting films.
Oh,
they're
great.
films that I get more out of them than these other ones, of course. And I know that you agree, but I want to make sure that it's on the record, essentially.
Put it on
But,
the record. I've talked enough. Keep going.
500 Days of Summer specifically is so accessible to everybody because the two main characters are like, they don't, especially initially, they don't come across as insufferable or adult. It's until later in the film when you're like, wait, she's just literally saying exactly what she wants, and he's literally ignoring every single thing she's saying.
Correct.
What is happening here? But they do check all of those trope-filled boxes to get the same feeling conveyed about Manic Pixie Dream Girl films to you, the viewer, for 65% of that movie. And then you wake up and go, well, shit.
I like that you said they, by the way, because that's something I wanted to also emphasize. We touched on it. I mean, I at least touched on it when I was kind of describing what that microgenre holds. But it's really, we can't put all the weight, despite it being in the title of the thing, on the girl, the female. I mean, the trope only works, and this title only applies when the male protagonist also checks the boxes that make it kind of a Manic Pixie Dream Girl film or microgenre.
They've got to be a sad
Elizabeth-
sack.
You got to be a sad sack.
Elizabethtown doesn't work if Orlando Bloom isn't sad.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, because then he's like, "Get away from me, crazy lady."
I'm happy. Who are you?
I'm happy, and you are attractive, but not for me.
But off-putting. Chris, why don't you tell us, what do you think is the foundational title for Manic Pixie Dream Girl films?
I'm disappointed in both of you for not picking this movie or even mentioning this movie. I get why, because
It might be on my list.
it's probably on your. Knowing you as little as I do, but clearly that the effusiveness with which you speak about films, I'm sure this is on your list. But for me, there is only one movie that I think of when I really go to Manic Pixie Dream Girl. And I think for me, it's like, this is one of the original, like, kinds of these movies that I saw. Annie Hall, Woody Allen, Diane Keaton. She's like the OG Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Like, la-di-da, la-di-da. That right there, like, that line is all you need
to know about the Manic Pixie Dream
Yeah,
Girl.
and again, like, she doesn't have the pixie haircut, but she embodies that pixie energy.
I'll have you know that it was on my list, and it's a good example. However, by the way, two things of note. One is, in doing my research, and I would agree with this, especially given the loose definitions of actual Manic Pixie Dream Girl films that we've been discussing here, rather than how heavily it's applied elsewhere throughout pop culture. They've dated it back all the way to the 30s with Bringing Up Baby, Katharine Hepburn's character, to Cary Grant's character in that film, which upon a rewatch, I would not argue with. So I think that might be the earliest example. It's certainly the earliest example I found, or that other people have found and notated. But Annie Hall is certainly, obviously, also one of the earliest examples, I would agree. And, what's interesting about that, because I was going to bring this up later, Chris, so I'm very glad you brought it up, is that Woody Allen has gone on record saying that character is actually based almost to 100% with very little flexibility on Diane Keaton as a person.
Right.
Because they have a very close relationship. So then that's where we really start bending the term Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Because is it a Manic Pixie Dream Girl? Is that a trope when it seems like it applies to a character in a film that's actually based off of a real person? It goes back to what I've already said 2 times at least and earlier in this show. What is the difference between a Manic Pixie Dream Girl versus just a outgoing, quirky female character, or even human person? And, that goes back to what we already exhausted, which is how loosely this term is thrown around, especially as of the last, decade or so.
Well, and again, to your point from before, I think the real thing that we have realized is it's less really about her and more about the guy, because the guy is the important part. He's got to be a sad sack, unable to regulate his own emotions, has no autonomy of his own over his own life, and he gives it all to her to make it, make better. after the undoubted meet cute that they have. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is just wish fulfillment for the guy who's writing the script. Because like we've mentioned, that person in real life would need your help. Take it from experience. They do. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like Manic Pixie Dream Girl for me is something that, like, the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, I knew someone like this. And like, I'm still dealing with things about them having been part of my life that it's like, it was not fun. It was exhausting. And to be exhausting, like you've mentioned, Ryan, is the idea of, like, in real life, if someone was this quirky, you'd smack them. You'd be like, you can't keep this up. Like, this is a gag, right? Like, you're telling me you're like this all the time. There's no off button here. Like, give me a break, right? Like, that's what you want from that character is every time they're on screen, it's, it's like, man, if someone was like that in real life, you'd just be like, I gotta go do anything else for like an hour, and then I'll come spend time with you. By the way, I do want to mention Manic Pixie Dream Boy is a thing, sort of.
It has popped up in the pop culture vernacular over the last couple of years.
I'll throw my hat into the ring for the movie I think represents that I can think of off the top of my head. Michael Cera, anytime he's in things for the most part.
You did exactly what people did to Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah.
Michael Cera, Manic Pixie Dream Boy.
But that's the thing, like, I think of him in Juno, and I'm like, Manic Pixie Dream Boy. Like, you know, he's cute, and he's weird, and they had unprotected sex, and they're having a baby, and he doesn't know what to do, and she's gonna help him. I guess he helps her. So Manic Pixie Dream Boy, it's kind of a thing.
Her. Well, yeah, that's the reverse of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Diablo Cody's just, you know, she did a good job. I mean, she did a good job with that movie. I'll give her that, because, like, in a lot of ways, that movie takes the trope and kind of puts it on its head.
Yeah, which, you know, I mean, since you said that, I'll go back to what we talked about earlier. First of all, you are correct in tying it all back to the writer. I mean, that's literally included in the definition that Nathan Rabin wrote about when he coined it. He says, it exists solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach brooding, soulful young men to embrace life and its infinite mysteries and adventures. So even when he coined the term, he's not applying it to women in general. He's applying it to these lonely, sad sack writers that fabricate this. You know, I mean, obviously, in some ways, you could argue that it's their job to create good entertainment because look at how beloved these movies are as romantic comedies. But
agreed.
But yeah, I mean, it's the writer's job to fabricate this Manic Pixie Dream Girl as it's been coined. Unless you're somebody like Charlie Kaufman or Zoe Deschanel or whomever who's actually trying to have a dialogue about exactly that and critique it within the film itself. But yeah, I mean, I would argue that that's why I relate to it so much, because I am a sad sack writer.
Well, then let's go to the next level and discover a deep cut in this subject, one that might turn people off if they watch this as their first foray into the genre. So, Jeremy, what is your pick for a decent deep cut?
What I will say is that if we are allowed to repeat something I've said earlier, I would say Ruby Sparks is a very, despite it popping up in many Manic Pixie Dream Girl lists, if you were to Google that and do your own research, I think it's a very highly underseen film. That I don't know if I would say that it would necessarily maybe turn you off of the genre if you started with that one, since that's something you specifically mentioned, Ryan. But I will say that that's a deeper cut and a lesser known film that would be classified in this microgenre.
Well, I will say, other than when you mentioned it earlier, I resemble this remark, because this is the most I've ever heard anybody discuss Ruby Sparks at all. Yeah. So I don't know anything about this one. Can you I'm assuming it's all the same tropes, but anything special about this movie that people should know about?
Well, it's all the same tropes to a point. And once again, it's one of those films kind of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where Zoe Kazan is almost using the film to actively critique the trope and point out its flaws and so on and so forth. The film itself is about a writer, go figure, Paul Dano's character, who is indeed a lonely sad sack, and had a big book that was huge when he was in his late teens that kind of made him this big, well-known writer. and hasn't really been able to write anything worthwhile since, and goes to see a therapist played by Elliot Gould, has no real friends besides his brother and his dog, and his therapist gives him the assignment to write about somebody who he's embarrassed by his dog who pees like a girl dog even though it's a boy, and is slobbery, whatever. So his therapist gives him the assignment to write about somebody who sees his dog Scotty and likes him for who he is and doesn't judge him for being weird or being slobbery and a mess. And so upon doing this assignment, he comes up with this fictional girl, literally writing the Manic Pixie Dream Girl within the film, and names her Ruby Sparks, comes up with this whole backstory for her. And then suddenly, little by little, she becomes alive and is a real person in his life that he is dating. And he discovers that whatever he writes about her becomes true in real life. And then it's a slippery slope from that point on, because he swears that he's not going to write anything more about her and that she's perfect and that she's his dream girl, hence the definition. But as we soon discover, that isn't always the case when you're coming up with a fabricated, idealistic, perfect woman that has no emotions or personality of their own other than what you wrote for them. So it's really deconstructing the genre while somehow being classified within the genre at the same time.
It reminds me a lot about a film I loved with Will Ferrell called Stranger Than Fiction.
Sure.
But yeah, it sounds interesting. And I think that's what's great about a lot of these, is that they're literally there to subvert the genre, which I'm going to actually probably hit really hard for question 3 when we get there. But I want to throw out one for this one that we haven't mentioned yet for my deep cut. And I'm usually not a Tom Cruise guy, but I actually really like Vanilla Sky. And I think Penelope Cruz falls squarely into this one.
Very good one that we didn't mention yet, but yeah, that's a very apt.
Because of the Tom Cruise of it, I can see why it would be off-putting for some people, and the story itself.
It's only the Tom Cruise of it that's off-putting about Vanilla Sky, I promise.
No, there's quite a bit. I understand the movie itself is a lot for some people, but I will say I really like the way Cameron Crowe approached this movie, and I tend to like Cameron Crowe stuff a lot. Like, if you look up this subgenre of sorts, a lot of people refer to Almost Famous. I don't really think of that as a Manic Pixie Dream Girl movie, but
it is often the debate of this topic. Yes, is it? Isn't it? You know, it's very interesting because Cameron Crowe is one of those writers where just about anything he's made can arguably, well, not just about anything. I would argue Jerry Maguire is nowhere close to a Manic Pixie Dream Girl film, but any romantic film he has almost falls into this genre. I mean, Elizabethtown coined the term. You're bringing up Vanilla Sky, which is a very apt depiction, and yeah, Almost Famous is very much on the fence, and part of a debate is it not a Manic Pixie Dream Girl film?
Chris, any deep cuts you want to throw out there?
I got 3 that nobody has mentioned. Not a single mention from any of y'all. So here's one that I'll throw out. This is a holiday Manic Pixie Dream Girl movie. That would be Elf, starring Zooey Deschanel. Haha.
Agreed.
Yeah, see, that's an easy layup.
Yeah, she's the Michael Cera of the Manic Pixie.
Another one that I find to be interesting that no one mentioned, again, I think it's a little bit more, it subverts it. And again, you never even see this person throughout the entire movie. Spike Jonze's Her.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good
that's
one.
That's another one that's on the fence because, you know, it's often the debate as to whether or not it falls into this genre because it has all the themes and elements of a Manic Pixie Dream Girl film without the physical girl existing. But because it's played by a very attractive actress, Scarlett Johansson, it then, in the minds of people, is like, oh, this fits into the genre now.
Well, I would even go as far as also to say the idea of like he is making her the way he wants her to be too by just interacting with her is kind of, again, going to the idea of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. But the one that I think for me, now this is a movie that I love a lot, and it has Paul Dano in it as well. And again, nobody's mentioned it, so I'll take the opportunity to mention The Girl Next Door, the Elisha Cuthbert movie, where she plays a Manic Pixie Dream Girl who's a porn star. But I mean, again, very little a character of her own in the movie. exists as kind of a plot device more than a character. And who doesn't love the first time I saw Timothy Olyphant in anything? Holy shit. He's the best part of that movie on top of everything else.
No, you're right. He's great in that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that one is literally in the title, Girl Next Door. Which
right.
could almost be interchangeable with Manic Pixie Dream Girl in some way.
But that for me is a big one. Because again, we haven't mentioned that one. And that's a movie that I love dearly. The Girl Next Door is the three legs of the tripod, you know, you were talking about Chris Messina earlier, his line at the end of the movie, aren't you a little young to be in film school? Shut the fuck up. Next question is, one of the great retorts in cinema. So The Girl Next Door is a good one, but Elf and Her, I think, are also straddle the line. Maybe.
I forgot Chris Messina was also in Girl Next Door, which is so crazy. It's like they're two Manic Pixie Dream Girls microgenre films that have Paul and Chris together. Ruby Sparks and Girl Next Door.
Is Just Friends a Manic Pixie Dream Girl movie with Amy Smart?
I don't know.
Or is that Ryan Reynolds being the Manic Pixie Dream boy?
I don't even know if he's a Manic Pixie Dream boy. It's really kind of... That one's a little more complicated than the very basic outline of depressed, sad sack guy gets saved by quirky, outgoing...
I mean, that is Just Friends. You just described that movie, though. That's what I mean. Like, to your point, like the looseness with which you can drape this cloth over things is, depending on how loose you want to get, you can see everything sticking out. Or I don't know. I think the definition is so kind of vague. You can make almost everything, but nothing a Manic Pixie Dream Girl movie at the same time.
I mean, it's hard to define, which almost fuels the argument of should it even be part of the vernacular? Should we drop it? I mean, it's still being used to this day, and films that would fall into that category are still being made to this day.
Right.
But can one man who happened to say this term that just happened to catch on, is that a justifiable reason for us to keep it up when it is so loosely being thrown around and has such a almost vague definition? Yeah,
right.
That's discussing. Should we even be doing this episode?
Should we even be here at the episode right here?
What would you say it is if we're doing here?
Well, funny enough, that's kind of a perfect cue to go to our third question, which I feel like we could go in many, many different directions for this one. Third question is always, what is the biggest impact that our subject today has had on pop culture? And this doesn't necessarily need to be a movie, but it could be something like inspiring other filmmakers or having an effect on the zeitgeist in some certain ways. So, Jeremy, what do you think is the biggest impact the Manic Pixie Dream Girl film?
I just want to say I like that how you introduced that question with the third question, as always, is...
As always, it is as always, every time.
A jab to me who wasn't prepared.
No, it was not. It was not a jab to you at all. You go look on every episode; he says the same thing.
Okay, got it.
But it was also a jab at you, just to further reinforce your paranoia.
Thank you, 100%. Oh, always paranoid. Always. I'm literally showcasing to you why I fit into this sub micro genre so well and why it's such a part of my life. You're right that we can go a couple different ways on this question. I'll choose two paths. The first path being which I won't touch on too much because I feel like we've exhausted it already, but because it answers the question, an impact that this subject has had on popular culture is exactly what we're talking about. How labeling things can be dangerous sometimes when thrown around too easily. And, I guess kind of, especially in this day and age, 2024, times are changing for the better in a lot of ways, especially in Hollywood. Thank goodness, finally. You had to kind of be a little more choosy with how you describe things or depict things even in certain ways. That's one thing I'll say. Again, we've exhausted that topic quite a bit throughout the entire run of this episode. And this one's more important to me, I would say, and something that we haven't exactly touched on to a great extent yet, is a big impact that this subject has had on pop culture, or really culture as a whole, if you really dig into the meaning behind what this type of microgenre film conveys, is that your problems can't be solved by one. There is no such thing necessarily. There are people kind of like Manic Pixie Dream Girls that you want to slap, as Chris put earlier, but there really is no Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
I'd like to point out, I do not advocate violence against women. I'm only advocating for people having a cosmic slap in what's the word?
Cosmic slap.
Oh yeah, we all know someone who's like, you need the universe to just slap you out of it. Like, right? Like, I mean, again, like that's what these movies are trying to do. Like these characters are that cosmic slap for the characters in the movie. But in reality, the Manic Pixie Dream Girls are the ones that also need a cosmic slap. That's the gag here. Is it not? Like, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is just in someone else's story, someone who has driven someone else up a fucking wall. Like, the other person just happens to meet them, and now they're really enamored and taken by how quirky they are.
They need each other in a sense.
Fair, yeah.
At least in some of the films. But no, I mean, you know, I'm as somebody who is very self-aware of my own personality and faults and all the bells and whistles, and has, you know, been in many relationships and done lots of soul searching, and is a writer as well, and part of this world that fabricates these things. I've learned a very important lesson is that you can't be entering in any kind of relationship with the desire of that person fixing you or completing you or becoming whole suddenly, which is kind of what the trope exists about, is that suddenly this person comes out a much better person and is all better by the end of the film because of this one person. And that just doesn't happen. That's not how life works. And these Manic Pixie Dream Girls don't actually exist. And so I would say if there's some kind of impact that can be taken from these types of films, this microgenre, and applied to, again, not even just pop culture, but culture as a whole, it's the lesson of, look, these are movies. They're meant to entertain. Don't let this, like I did in the past. I'm the prime example of this. It's just why I'm preaching it. Don't let this seep into your reality and your real life and believe that this is how life works and that this is what you need to fix your own problems and your own mental health.
To quote the great Holden McNeil from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, fictional characters. Fictional characters.
I think that's a good answer, though. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, you know, that let this almost be like, I mean, you know, that age-old meme of the person leaving the movie theater and goes, oh, okay, what personality am I going to imprint on my life now after leaving this movie or whatever the heck that, I don't remember the exact meme, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The guy leaves the theater.
I don't know if you're referring to me because I giggled right there a little bit. But what I was getting at, I was going to have Chris answer first because I didn't want to make this depressing. But now that you've kind of already stepped into the arena, the way that I love this genre is because most of the ones that I love, like I already mentioned, are the ones that subvert the whole idea of this one person is fixing it and blah, 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 whatever. But my big thing is that when you deconstruct those films specifically, like 500 Days of Summer, very much so, and some on Eternal Sunshine, these are kind of like anti-incel movies at heart.
Thank you for mentioning the word.
The way that we approach these can change a lot of things. You know, the person leaving the theater that didn't get, hey, I'm the problem and I need to work on something. Mm-hmm. That is the fucking problem. And unfortunately, this genre as a whole has had positive and negative impacts on either side of this entire arena. I mean, the amount of, you know, incel communities that have grown over the years. I'm not saying that they've grown because of the genre, but they've emboldened some of them, I guarantee.
You're blaming Joseph Gordon-Levitt for incels now? Wow, Ryan. I'm just asking questions.
There's so much that if you just watch these on the surface, you walk away thinking that you're perfect and you need that one person to come change your life.
You deserve that one person. That's the word.
The entitlement in these movies is palpable. And that's where a lot of this gets insufferable, like from Jump Street. And when you look at what somebody could glean from just the simple storylines and just listening to the words, yeah, you can make a lot of fucked up personalities from these movies. But when you actually dive in and take like, no, by the second act, he's the idiot.
Yeah.
And she is the one that's saying, listen to me, fucktard. I'm trying to
the cosmic
explain.
slap.
Exactly. It makes no sense what is going on when they're just turning their back and saying, I'm the one that is perfect here. And yeah, so at heart, like I view these, the great ones to me are essentially anti-incel films.
Great.
Yeah, and what's funny, Ryan, is you were saying that, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, this shit sounds like incel fuel to me. Like, I
almost used the term earlier, but
but that's the thing. Like, I think with the rise of the incel culture, and again, like, I'm not going to cast aspersions, Reddit and 4chan. Sorry, I mean that's part of it, but. With those kinds of things existing in the world the way that they do, now we do have to worry about. In my mind, Manic Pixie Dream Girls are kind of like porn in terms of like casting unrealistic expectations for a certain group of people who need to have realistic expectations going into the thing that they're doing, because if not, bad things come out of that, like Ryan already mentioned. But to get away from the negative, because for the most part, I try to be a positive person, but to return to the negative personally, I don't think Manic Pixie Dream Girl movies helped me as a human being at all, because I fell into that camp of, someone can come fix me, and it don't work that way. It has not only does it not work that way, it has never worked that way. And to think that you are going to somehow be that person is to fall into the fallacy that all of these movies ignore, for the most part, other than the ones that are subversive, which is, hey, fucko, you're the problem, like Ryan said. And, like, the problem is the Manic Pixie Dream Girl character also is the problem. It's just the movie never acknowledges it because they're a plot device, never a character. I mean, what you described, Jeremy, every time you've read Nathan Rabin's quote is, or Raban, because I'd like to believe he's from the Dune universe. Every time you read that quote, all I can think is the person that's being described here also needs help. But they never get it. In none of these movies, for the most part, is the Manic Pixie Dream Girl the one that's like sat down and like, stop it, come on, like anything, just stop. Like, just stop being yourself for 2 seconds and realize that the person that you are is a problem. And they never had that conversation in the movie. Because again, like with 500 Days of Summer, by the end of the movie, she's out of his life and he's learned. But he learned because he listened in that movie. And that's the thing. If you know a Manic Pixie Dream Girl in real life, likelihood that they listen, pretty low. Likelihood that they're going to change your life, pretty low. The likelihood that they will need you to help them, pretty high. So it's very weird because in reality, Manic Pixie Dream Girl stories are reversed. Normally this person is in your life and you're the one needing to help them, not them helping. Someone who doesn't have their shit together is not going to help someone else who doesn't have their shit together. That's not how this works, folks. And it's just setting unrealistic expectations, I think, is the problem with Manic Pixie Dream Girls, because the term now can label anything and everything. And now those movies that don't deserve it, that weren't part of it, also get labeled as well. Yeah. And that diminishes everything. And putting labels on stuff sucks anyways. So
it does.
Fuck that.
Well, funny enough, that's what the whole genre is, that line specifically. Right. Most of these movies are just guys putting attributes and labels on women that they shouldn't. That's the entire epitome of all of this.
Yeah, literally.
This person is XYZ and this, and then they're going to save me. And that's not how life works. I'd argue that the real life relationships with the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, as Chris said, the reverse, you're helping them. I'd argue it's really a codependent.
You'd be correct in arguing that.
As someone who's been in them.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I don't like admitting that, but part of this is like, I've been there, I've done that, and it sucks. And so it's like, if anything, listen to me when I say this is not the fun fucking Zooey Deschanel, Annie Hall, boiling lobsters and chasing you around the kitchen with them. Like, it's a kind of exhausting that is hard to describe, because every time you think there is no depths that can be sunk to, we find that there's ground beneath the barrel. And that's the kind of person Manic Pixie Dream Girl is in real life. So unrealistic expectations all the way down.
I'd agree with you, and I think some combination really of all three of our answers is the best answer to question number 3, which is don't let these become your reality. And really, in modern age, sure, there's a lot of films, even within the last couple of years, that still fall into this kind of generic Manic Pixie Dream Girl microgenre, but there's so many more films, I'd argue, that are trying to do exactly what Ryan said, which is subvert that genre and critique that genre and make a point about how you can't just do that. All the things we're saying. And that's something positive and a positive impact that can come out of this. I would say
it's one of the reasons why I love how so many of these don't have cliche happy endings. So many of them are just, they walk away and go in different directions. And that's how it should be. But again, the people that miss the point on these don't view that as they both weren't right for each other and they both need to find that right person. Or that's how they do view it. It's just that, like they had a missed opportunity essentially. And now they need to find that other right person that will fix both of them, instead of just, they're both just failures and we need to stop this. Like, wake up. This is ridiculous.
No, it is the children who are wrong.
I could go into specific examples too of how the endings of certain one of these films that people try to squeeze into this category do indeed subvert that, just how you were explaining, Ryan. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to spoil endings for anybody who hasn't seen some of these films. Because Eternal Sunshine and Ruby Sparks, and even Her, that Chris brought up earlier, really do purposefully and deliberately subvert the expectations of what the box that people are throwing these films in the Manic Pixie Dream Girls.
Well, and I think having a realistic ending helps with the expectation setting and destruction, like to make it, again, like if you take the wrong thing away from it, I can't help you, but pray to God you don't, and hope to God that the filmmaker has done enough to get you to the point they want to get you to. Because at the end of Annie Hall, that is the point. It's like they were never going to be right for each other, and that's okay. Like, some people grow together, some people grow apart, and some people were just never going to grow together as it was to begin with. And that's life. And, romantic comedies and rom-coms and not rom-coms, just normal, straight romantic movies, I have a problem with them the same reason I have a problem with this, because, again, it's like, it never has the honest conversation. Forgetting Sarah Marshall is probably my favorite romantic movie of all time because it is realistic in the way it portrays that aspect of relationships. And at the end, it says exactly what we're saying, which is like, life is messy, nothing is easy, it's rarely straightforward. And on top of everything else, if your expectations are that any one of those things is not going to be the case, fucking check them at the door, because you're, again, being conditioned by things that are not doing you a service, they're doing you a disservice.
I mean, I agree 100%, especially with how unrealistic, romantic films in general, for the most part, are. Probably 80%, if not more. Talk about, Ryan and I were just talking about this the other day, so I'll bring it up because I've been rewatching it just because we were talking about it the other day. And it's a show, not a movie, so, a little bit out of the realm here, but talk about something that really accurately depicts relationships and codependency and all the things that we're talking about. Realistically, Love. The show Love, if you haven't watched it, does an expert job of showing you all the trials, tribulations, ups and downs, pros and cons of actually being in a relationship with somebody, more so than any rom-com ever had.
I agree. Yeah, it's really well made.
Ties really well into question number 4 that I now know what it is, because Ryan, do you want to say it? Because we've already said the answer, really.
Well, yeah, let's do it. What is a cinematic bridge to the subject that we are discussing of Manic Pixie Dream Girls? So essentially, what is something that somebody listening to this, if they find themselves having never seen any of the movies that we're discussing, what is something that they may already be into that could clue them in that they would enjoy?
The answer is the rom-com. The rom-com is the broader, more appealing, I'd argue, and more popular version of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl microgenre. Because, I mean, not all rom-coms are Manic Pixie Dream Girl films, and not all Manic Pixie Dream Girl films are rom-coms. Many of them are just straight-up dramas. Eternal Sunshine, for example. Something like 500 Days of Summer is kind of more leaning on the rom-com realm. But they cross bridges very often, but they're not mutually exclusive. But I would argue that, look at how many rom-coms come out every year. Most of them are just very generic. And but to use a term that Ryan hates, they're kind of my guilty pleasure. And I go into rom-coms all the time, essentially predicting the end, and 99% of the time I'm right because they are so stereotypical and cookie cutter with their plot lines and tropes. But that's what some cinema viewers love. I mean, you go to the movies to escape, and it doesn't matter how predictable it is for people who don't critique films as much as somebody like I do. They just go because they want to have that little escape for an hour and a half to 2 hours and see something that makes them cry and get their emotions out. And so for that reason, rom-coms are, just very much more mass produced and much more popular, I would argue, in the world of cinema than this semi-specific microgenre. However, they are very interchangeable in a lot of ways and relatable, and therefore I would argue that would be the bridge, the most obvious answer of a bridge between, if you haven't seen any of these movies we're discussing, but you like rom-coms, then try out some of these films because they're kind of like those, but a little less predictable and a little more subversive.
I fully agree with you here. And I feel like there are so many of these that we could list as examples that the main difference between the two genres there are, for a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, you would describe the person, when we say manic, it's more like neglectful. And if you see somebody from a rom-com, you might use something like the word aloof. They're just like silly cute or clumsy and not like, oops, I fell asleep at Michelle's house and forgot to pay my rent for 3 months. And a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, like that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. They have a small screw up and somebody's life is ruined.
Yeah. Vast difference from, whoops, I slipped on a banana peel. Aren't I a klutz?
And I fell in his arms. Oh, man.
Yeah, what a meet cute.
Chris, any thoughts?
You got your jelly in my peanut butter. I literally can't think of any other film or any other genre that would qualify as a bridge. I mean, you're not watching a horror movie and being like, what I think this really makes sense to ties in the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
I mean, some Manic Pixie Dream Girl films, if you break them down, are kind of horror.
I was going to say my answer is kind of a specific kind of horror movie that there isn't a lot of, which is like single white female, where it's kind of a person, again, like for me, that's my point. Like, that's kind of what I've been driving at up until this point is like, if you just take a step to the right and look at these a different way, like these are horror movies, like it's a horror movie. And so you say that, Jeremy, but I was actually going to say like a certain kind of horror movie, like a stalker horror movie is probably, if you're into those, you might be like, oh, this is like that without the teeth in a way. Like what would happen if, say, in Single White Female, she wasn't trying to take her life? Like, and then you've essentially got like a Manic Pixie Dream Girl movie. Or, and again, I'll go back to it before, if for some reason you're a big fan of the magical Negro trope, which again, if that's a thing you're a fan of, you might be a fan of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl movies because, again, very similar character idea. And I don't know how many times I can get away with saying magical Negro trope, but that's the last time I'm saying it for the foreseeable future.
Good thing you're also the editor. Color me convinced.
Now I'm dying to do like a stalker horror episode of Film Foundations.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be really fun.
See what I mean, though? Like, it is...
I call it. No one else can take that one.
But that's my point. Like, if you look at them theologically as what they're trying to say, like, they're very similar in their, like, outlook on the people that they're having that conversation about. Just Manic Pixie Dream Girls, the cutesy side of it. Like, if she was actually manic, she'd be like stalking you maybe and like trying to like, I mean, again, like
a swim fan,
like Fatal Attraction, like, like,
no, I agree.
I won't be ignored, Dan. Like, okay.
That's why I said color me convinced, not about the MNP, but about your comparison to this. I was in my head, I was just trying to make the point of going completely out of left field and saying something. But look, I sit down in this comfy rolling chair, corrected, because something like my point was saying, like, if you're like a big fan of Dwayne The Rock Johnson movies, that's not really a bridge to Manic Pixie Dream Girls. I was trying to go completely in the opposite direction, but here I landed on a genre that you so aptly kind of did tie into as a bridge.
If you had said Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I would not have been able to tie it, just so you know. There's no world where I'm like, well, The Rock is a very emotional man in his film.
Did you see Jungle Cruise?
Did you see Skyscraper?
really is a sad sack when you really look at him.
Yeah, he really is the
So-
magic
Not a
Manic
lot going
Pixie
on.
Dream Boy of Skyscraper.
The thought of Skyscraper. Can someone try and take Skyscraper and remake it into a Manic Pixie Dream Girl film with the exact same plot?
Wow.
No, I think that's a good. Yeah, I like that answer, Chris.
Thank you.
Bravo.
On that note, I think we covered this pretty damn well tonight. I'm very excited to hear what people think
Would you
about
say it's your favorite episode?
To put me on the spot? No.
Damn it, Ryan.
Then I guess you got to have me back for the Stalker episode, and I'll at least know the 4 questions.
But see, here's the thing. I can just edit it so when you ask Ryan, he just goes, yes.
Yeah, you pull a yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Ryan, can you just get a clean cut of you saying yes?
Anyways, Jeremy, anything that you want to tell everybody about? Something to check out that you've worked on?
I'm working on a new script, but I mean, there's nothing really to promote at this stage.
Is it a Manic Pixie Dream Girl movie? That's the real question.
It is not. That would tie in way too well, but it is not. But maybe I can change
too
it.
personal.
Keep an eye on the old Instagram at Jeremy Long for upcoming show dates as I dive back into the world of stand-up comedy this year as my New Year's resolution after taking a long hiatus from the pandemic and the strikes and so on and so forth and all the other crazy stuff that's been happening over the last several years. Working on producing some television shows as I also do. I guess I can say this. Yeah, I'll say this. Look for a show, Roller Jam, coming to Max. I almost said HBO Max, just Max. Coming to Max in the fall, Roller Jam. Working on producing that one, and doing things with Ryan in the background. And I'm sure you'll find me on the Disconnected again sometime soon. And I'm sure. Ryan and I are going to be on another podcast coming up soon, too. So that's another thing I'm doing. So, my answer turned from no to quite a few things. There you go.
That podcast episode will be out months before this one goes out. So I will say check out Jeremy and I on the Imprint Cast because we talk about a really good movie over there, too. So if you like us jabbering about this, you'd probably like that.
Yes.
And I will say follow Jeremy's Instagram. It's a fun one, seeing some of the people that he interacts with on a random happenstance Thursday night in front of a movie theater. It's always exciting. But then you'll get all of the updates for when he's on my show or on the Disconnected. So yeah, give him a follow.
You'll get
He's a good follow.
You'll get updates on everything. You'll get updates on the TV shows that I'm producing, on the shows I'm doing, including Ryan's show, and pictures of my cat.
Chris, anything you want to tell the listeners about?
You can find me at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is the podcast network that I co-founded, and it's award-winning as well because last year, 80s TV Ladies won 3 podcast awards at the Podcast Awards show. So that's where you can go to find this show and so many other shows that I produce or work on or record or have a hand in or anything, weirdingwaymedia.com. My fingerprints are all over it. Sticky as fuck, as they would say. Ryan, what about you? Where can people find the things that you work on? Hopefully not as sticky as mine.
Well, by the time this goes up,
Yeah, or maybe more sticky. Who knows?
by the time this goes up, you can go to the disconnected.com. You'll find links to all of my shows, including all of the shows on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, which is not an award-winning podcast network. But the other big thing, you'll be able to see a lot of the physical media releases that we've been working on, including links to purchase all of them. It's a busy life, but very happy to be working with some incredible people, including Chris Dashew, including Jeremy Long. Thank you both for doing this, and everybody for listening. As usual, I do want to say, please check out the next episode, rate the podcast wherever you get it, and continue to push the boundaries of your interest in film.
The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.